No, 14 games for you. Monster Friday slate, a ton of huge contests, and we're gonna jump right into it. How you feeling about this one, man? $9,400 DeGrom on DraftKings kind of throws a wrench into the works.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a slate where I'm going to approach it a little bit differently than normal and go a bit more concentrated at pitching than I normally do. Normally I don't really limit my player pool at all, but I think that there are kind of such obvious pitching plays that I want to make sure that I'm spread out across offenses and I'm fine being really concentrated on pitching today.
All right, let's get it started, man. We got about an hour 10, 14 games, so we want to get through all of these. Philadelphia, Cincinnati. This is well, we have Zach Eflin, right? And Tyler Mahle. So for some reason DraftKings does this thing where if there isn't a pitcher confirmed, although I thought there was, they'll just list. Yeah, hold on one second, man.
Every single pitcher.
What?
Every single pitcher on the team.
Yeah, but see, the page doesn't give me an option to. It might just be that I don't have starters checked off, but the box to check the starters off isn't there. So whatever. It's Mahle and it's Eflin. I'll get that figured out. But yeah, you've seen them do it with teams where they just list every pitcher, reliever, and starter. It's so annoying. Mahle and Eflin, the Philly total came down a lot throughout the day. It opened at 5.3. Last I looked, it was down at 4.7. Reds around 4.4. Look, we know one thing about Mahle. He has been very good against righties, 31% strikeouts against lefties. Totally different story. And then with Eflin, look, he's always been rough against lefties, but he's been he's been a solid pitcher overall in terms of run prevention. Not a guy I have any intention of paying a lot of money for, but also a pitcher that I have enough respect for to where I'm not just going to load up against him every time out. What are your thoughts on pitchers here?
I have interest in Mahle on the two pitcher sites. I think that because of the pricing on DeGrom, as you mentioned, and also pricing on Homer Bailey on DraftKings and Michael Pineda on Yahoo. It's someone that I don't know how much I'll get to, but he is one of my favorite of the mid-range arms just because I think he's a better pitcher than his price tag. He's 15th in called strike plus swinging strike percentage this season. His PCRA is around 3.5. He struck out 31% of righties, and most of the dangerous bats in the Phillies lineup are right-handed, the exception obviously being Harper and Bruce. But you're not too concerned about Hernandez. You're not too concerned about Adam Hazley. Having the platoon advantage against Segura, Hoskins, and Real Muto in the middle, I think, is pretty important for Mahle.
Wait, and Hazley's in the lineup?
Yeah, he's hitting 8th.
Oh, I have Franco.
I'll refresh, but I have it confirmed.
Okay, yeah, me too. But keep going. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I feel like it's not the best strikeout matchup because you do have Hazley that doesn't strike out a lot, assuming the lineup I'm looking at is right. Segura doesn't strike out a lot, but I don't know. I just think that the price tag's a little cheap. The problem I'm going to have is just that you have Brandon Woodruff near him in price, and then you also have some stars and scrubs pitching options. But I do like Mahle. If I'm looking for hitters against him, I'd be looking to Harper and Bruce in particular.
Okay. So one site has Hazley, another site doesn't, and DraftKings has Hazley out and has Franco in. So just throwing it out there because look, I'm not acting like he's a dominant hitter by any stretch. We really don't know if he's any good. But if he's out, that means you only have 3 lefties in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does make a difference.
It does.
For sure.
It does. Absolutely. But I'm saying it's not Bruce or Harper being out of the lineup. You know what I mean? But right. We'll see. We'll see if we can get confirmation one way or another because I see 2 different things on 3 different sites. So well, I wrote Mahle up in the deep dive today just as a look, if we get 6 righties in the lineup, I have interest. The upside's there. The strikeout upside is there. It's just a matter of can he get by these lefties? And with the way Jay Bruce has been hitting lately, that might be tough.
Yeah, I mean, really what it comes down to for me, as much as I like him, is it's just kind of an awkward price point on this slate. Like, if you look at DraftKings pricing where Mahle's 7,300, if you took Bailey, made him like 6,500, you made DeGrom like 11,500, and you made Woodruff like 9K, where they really should be, then I would really like Mahle as a way to save some money at pitcher. But with all of those guys being $1,500 to $2,000 less expensive than they should be, Molly is a little underpriced, but he's not that underpriced, and so it makes it tough to prioritize him.
It does, and I'm assuming you're on the same page as me when it comes to Eflin. It's just you don't, even if Cincinnati's not a great offense, they don't have the very high K rate, and Eflin at that price point, especially when you have Molly where he is, Woodruff where he is, and a few other guys, he's just overpriced.
Yeah, I mean, he has the 21st strikeout percentage on the slate. If you want to exclude Haney and Rookie Davis, he's still 19th. I don't feel like I need to pay up for him.
Neither do I. What about hitters? Because I do have interest in Bruce and Harper. Like I do like the lefties here. It's interesting because our ownership projections were showing a lot, even the righty Philly bats, pretty heavily owned. I have a lot more interest if I'm going Philly in the lefties here.
Yeah, it's the lefty bats for me. I mean, the righties are affordably priced, which is probably why they're getting ownership. Just from a talent standpoint, getting
right.
Hoskins or Real Muto at 43 or 4,100, Segura at 39, like those are nice price tags. But from a matchup standpoint, it's Harper and Bruce from the Philly side, and then from the Red side, it's Dietrich, Winker, and whatever you want to Joey Votto, I guess, even though he's just been absolutely awful. Dietrich on FanDuel in particular is really appealing.
I have no idea what's going on with your microphone.
It's doing it again.
Talk.
Does it sound better now?
Yeah, but it just goes loud and soft and up and down. I don't know. Weird. You're not cutting out. You're just, your audio level is going down a lot. All right. Well, any interest?
I fixed what I thought the issue was.
Any interest in Cincy bats like a Dietrich where he's like especially discounted, $5K on DraftKings, but he's still $3K flat on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think the price tag on FanDuel is really, really appealing. It's not even that I think he's too expensive at $5K, but there's obviously a lot of options on a 14-game slate. On FanDuel, though, they're just refusing to move his price no matter how good he hits. So I think he's a really good play there.
I mean, the guy just has ample power. He's got 17 homers on the season, and he's at Citizens Bank Park. So there's a lot to like there. Anything else from Cincinnati?
Nope.
All right, well, let's keep going here. Toronto and Arizona. Merrill Kelly, Marcus Stroman. Both of these guys above 8K on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you've got, honestly, I'm not even going to read their prices off on FanDuel unless you're interested. If you are, I'll let you do it. But I'm not very big on pitching on this game. It's a 14-game slate, and it's tough for me to get to either of these guys.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the pitching here. Not really interested in the Diamondbacks bats either. David Peralta is a little underpriced, but there's a lot of outfielders that you can get to. The only spot in this game where I actually do have interest is the Toronto bats. I know they've been really bad this year, but there's a couple things that I like about them here. For one, they're affordable and they have power. Even though they haven't been an overly productive offense this year, they have still hit for power. And on this slate where, there's some good pitching, obviously, that you want to pay up for. They let you do that. Kelly isn't a guy that misses a lot of bats, and he's also really struggled with right-handed power in particular this season. So Vlad Guerrero, Randall Grichuk, Gurriel, Hernandez, those guys are all appealing. But also just the lineup that Toronto is running out, it's one of the more stackable lineups that you can get from them because it only has Tellez. It doesn't have Justin Smoke. So you don't have two first basemen in the middle of that lineup. You can pretty easily get Guerrero, Tellez, Grichuk, and then, depending on the site, if Gurriel and Biggio are the same position or not, you can get both of those guys. So it's just pretty stackable, pretty cheap lineup with a lot of power for Toronto.
Yeah, it really is. And they've been pretty disappointing, no question, but they're really inexpensive. And it does make them really easy to get to, especially, like Vlad Guerrero continues to give us a great value and just so many more that you already mentioned. Grichuk is cheap. Biggio is for 3,400 batting sixth. You're right. It's very easy to get to them. What is on the other side? Any interest against Stroman?
Not really. He's not a DFS pitcher that I like to roster, especially at his current price tags, but he doesn't give up a ton of runs. If you are going to target him, it should be with left-handed bats. Peralta is the one that stands out at only 4,200 on DraftKings. But when you start comparing him to some other outfielders, it's still just, secondary or tertiary option. Christian Walker's been hitting the hell out of the ball this year, but he's, a first baseman. There's a million options there too, and he doesn't have the platoon advantage against Stroman. So much more interested in the Toronto side of this game.
Yeah. Did Mitch Haniger really rupture his testicle?
What? I had not seen that.
Mitch Haniger hit the 10-day DL with a ruptured testicle.
That does not sound fun.
Oh, it doesn't. Jeez. Whew. All right, get better soon, Mitch. That's rough. All right, well, moving on. We'll get to that game shortly. Boston and
Sorry.
What's
no,
up?
sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just didn't realize that Danny Jansen was hitting. Well, that Danny Jansen was $2,000 on DraftKings. He's been terrible this year, but every projection system or scouting report says that he should at least be, close to average. Like he's not a great hitter, but should be better than a 2K catcher.
Yeah, he should. He also on DraftKings is going to have the highest ownership, obviously. Right now we have him at 25%. That's 10% higher than the next catcher. But look, sometimes it works. If you went with what's lowercase D's name on Tampa?
D'Arnaud.
Thank you, Travis d'Arnaud. There was a time when the Mets had 3 guys on the roster all with lowercase D's. Who was the outfielder? It was DeGrom, d'Arnaud, and
yeah,
you know who I'm talking about.
Den Decker.
Matt Den Decker. Yes. That was it.
One time he had 3 home runs in a game.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, anyway, Boston and Tampa. Chirinos, Porcello. Are you getting to either pitching option here? Either you had mentioned that you're going to be pretty condensed. So am I, and I don't seem. I get why people would want to roster Porcello, but there are a few pitchers in the similar price range on 2-pitcher sites that just give me way more strikeout upside. It's hard for me to get there.
Yeah, exactly. Josh and I talked about that a lot this morning because he was higher on Porcello than me. But it's just that you have Molly and you have Woodruff specifically in this price range where Woodruff has a 28% strikeout percentage. Molly's at 26%. Rick Porcello's at 18%. And then he also has a walk percentage higher than Woodruff and higher than Molly. And while there are some strikeouts in Tampa's lineup, it's not like they're a lineup that doesn't have good hitters that have a lot of power that can take advantage of Porcello not being able to miss bats. So I don't really have interest in Porcello here. He's cheap enough where, I wouldn't. If you disagree with me and you like him more than Molly, then I'm not going to try too hard to talk you off of it. But for me and the way that I view pitching, I don't really have interest in Porcello here.
Neither do I. And with hitting, it's like you're getting discounts on guys like Mookie's 4,400 on DraftKings, Benintendi 44. I totally understand that. I really think Chirinos is a decent enough pitcher, but like if you're telling me you want to get to a $4,400 Mookie Betts, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Chirinos isn't a pitcher that I tend to look to take hitters against. But when you give me Mookie Betts at 4,400, it's really hard not to. Same goes for Benintendi at 4,400. Clearly not as good as Mookie Betts is.
And no JD today, by the way.
Right. Yeah. No JD. It makes. Yeah, I mean the bottom of the Boston order is pretty bad, but they also are really, really cheap. So you can get a team with a 5+ implied run total with some good pitching if you just utilize the bottom of that order, and it gives you some upside there. So Betts stands out as the top play for me, but I don't mind getting into some Boston just because of their price tags.
Yeah, neither do I. If Mookie was like 5,300 and he was right around like some of the best hitters on this slate in better spots, I wouldn't have much interest. But 44 is just way too low. Do you have any Tampa Bay interest?
I like the spot. I don't like their price tags, especially when you talk about Mookie being 4,400, and you talk about some of these other cheap stacks that we'll get to. It's tough because I really like the left-handed power here, but you have Austin Meadows, who's only $100 less than Yelich, and he's $1,500 more than Betts. Fenway also doesn't play off left-handed power like it does right-handed power. So for Meadows and Lau and Choi, it's not quite as advantageous a spot. And then you have really expensive price tags on Tommy Pham and Avisail Garcia. So I think that it's a high upside spot. I just think that it's also a 14-game slate with a lot of high upside spots where you don't have to pay through the roof for it.
Right, I'm with you. I think we can move on from this game if you're good with that.
Yep.
Cleveland and Yankees. Zach Plesac's been good. I've been pretty impressed with his stuff. I mean, you're not going to see the highest swinging strike numbers because he was up against the Boston team in his first start that doesn't strike out. That game was also rain delayed midway through it, and he came back out. And then 7 one-run innings with 7 Ks against the White Sox. He's been good. On the other side, you've got Domingo Germán, who his strikeout stuff has been fantastic this year. The problem is, if you're playing a guy like Germán, that means that you're probably not playing DeGrom, or you're probably not playing one of the other guys in this price range that make a lot of sense. There's actually somebody in the 9K range, not named DeGrom, that I like a lot today. His name is not Domingo Germán, which means it's going to be a lot harder for me to get here, even though I respect his stuff.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page.
Who
As
is
far
it?
as Andrew Haney.
Yeah. Dude, have you seen those curveball numbers?
Yeah.
Dear God.
Yeah. So I mean, on one hand, Germán's the guy where if I'm looking to just totally get away from ownership in this price point, because I think Haney has it also, Germán's the guy that you go to. I mean, he struck out 28.5% of lefties. He has really good stuff. He has the ceiling, but I just would rather, with 28 different offenses to choose hitters from, I'd rather be contrarian with hitting where there's a ton of volatility than with a clearly underpriced Jacob deGrom. So I'm going to be okay. Just, if Germán's the highest scoring pitcher on the slate, I'll be a little disappointed I don't have him, but I'll get over it. I feel better about just getting to deGrom, getting to Haney, and being different with some bats.
And another thing about Germán, he really does have amazing strikeout stuff, but he's averaging only 5 1/3 innings pitched per outing this season. So
yeah,
he hasn't pitched that deep into games.
Yeah, I think that's a really big thing to point out when you're talking about comparing him to deGrom, because if you just look at strikeout numbers and walk percentage and stuff,
yep,
Germán's behind him, but it's not by a ton. Like, the walk percentage is about the same. Strikeout percentage is like 2 percentage points lower. XFIP is lower, but it's still 3.8 compared to or 3.75 compared to 3.4. So it's not like either of them's bad. But I think that's a really, really big point when you just talk about the extra innings that deGrom can give you.
No question. Is there any hitting in this game that stands out to you? Didi Gregorius is back, by the way. He did not hit well in his rehab assignment, but he's batting 5th, and he's $3,000 on FanDuel, so it's worth pointing out.
The only thing that I would point out here, because the Yankees are expensive, and I do have respect for Plesac, so I don't think they're a spot that I get to very much.
Me neither.
I don't like the spot for the Indians, but it is worth pointing out that you have a cleanup hitter that's $2,700. 5 hitter that's $3,600. Jake Bauers is $3,200. Mercado's hitting second at $3,600. They're one of those teams that you can stack with Cole plus deGrom and still get some decent one-offs around them. So from that aspect, they give you some upside just because of what else you can get in the lineup with them.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. Be a little bit more interesting if Domingo Germán was actually popular, but they're still cheap enough. And guys like, Ramirez too, also very inexpensive. Detroit and Minnesota. Here's another one where you've got a very good pitcher in Matt Boyd on the mound, and then Michael Pineda. I know that Pineda has struggled, but I still think that this is one of those spots where I wouldn't be surprised if the strikeouts showed up. He's risky, but he's $26 on Yahoo. He's $6,400 on DraftKings. And he's going up against a 7-righty lineup. What are your thoughts on Pineda here? I don't imagine you're going to Boyd at such a high price point against a low strikeout team.
As far as Boyd goes, I am leaving him in my player pool when I narrow it down, just because he is one of the best pitchers on the slate. But I don't anticipate getting a whole lot of him.
Yeah.
Because of why you said. As far as Pineda, I really like the Yahoo price tag at $26. So he's like $4 less than Homer Bailey is on Yahoo, and so I like Pineda there. It's risky, but there are 7 righties in this lineup, and they do strike out. So, I'm fine getting the Pineda at a basically minimum price tag. On DraftKings, it's harder for me. Obviously not an option on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, it's harder just because he's $2,000 more than Homer Bailey, and I feel like I'm taking on very similar risk between them. Bailey's actually had the better strikeout stuff than Pineda this year. I'd rather just pay the absolute minimum for a pitcher.
I think that's fair. 26 on Yahoo is very, very cheap.
Yeah.
And that stands out, especially since Bailey isn't minimum salary. And on DraftKings, even guys of Bailey's caliber usually aren't 4,500.
Right. I think Bailey should be about 6,500, like right where Pineda is.
Yep. I agree with that. We don't have let me see if this is updated. Yeah, 6 minutes ago. Pineda wasn't in the ownership projections earlier. There wasn't anybody confirmed early on, but I just want to see where he's coming in at on DraftKings. So Pineda is at 11%. So among pitchers, he's 6th highest, and then you have Bailey around 7%. So neither are super high, but I agree Bailey is preferable on Bailey's preferable on DraftKings, Pineda on Yahoo, where he is basically minimum salary. With hitters here, like I don't hate the idea of getting to some Detroit stacks just because Pineda's home run issues have been seriously bad this year.
Yeah, I don't hate the idea of getting to either stack because Pineda he's always had issues with home runs. Now he's just striking guys out less.
Yeah.
And you have a really, really cheap Detroit team, especially, the top of the order here. Like Castellanos is actually a good hitter. Stewart has power. Goodrum has some pop. Brandon Dixon, I don't think he ends up being a good hitter, but he hits the ball hard at least, and this whole team's really cheap. And because outside of one or two teams, there's not teams that I just absolutely love on this slate that are expensive. That's another reason that I plan on having really concentrated pitching and just branching out across a bunch of different, stacks. And Detroit's one of those stacks that you can get DeGrom plus Cole plus some good one-offs and just get a lot of upside that way. Like normally I don't like paying up for pitching that much, but every slate's different. And this is one where I think, especially if you're max entering stuff, getting exposure to a lot of these cheap teams and hoping that, you hit one that is low owned and scores a lot of runs while you have ace pitching at the top is a good way to go.
I'm with you. And you're getting really cheap price points on especially the Detroit bats. And Pineda's a guy that, look, he's striking righties out at 23%. So it's a respectable enough number, Adam. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Pineda had 7 or 8 strikeouts here. It's very possible. But you're also talking about someone that's allowed 2.3 home runs per 9. It's a pretty high number. So I like both sides of this one. And I think it's a little bit site specific. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these price points. Atlanta and Miami, Mike Soroka, Jose Urena. Look, I don't know about you, but I'm assuming you're a pretty wise man. You are a smart man. You're not paying 11.6 for Mike Soroka on DraftKings.
I'm not paying Mike Soroka's price on any site that we're going to talk about.
Right. That's fair point. But 11.6. Like if you're saying, I think Soroka's better than Garrett Cole at $600 discount, you're crazy.
Mike Soroka should be Jacob deGrom's price, and Jacob deGrom
Correct.
should be Mike Soroka's price.
Cue the complete game shutout for Mike Soroka, by the way.
But does it even matter? Like, if he throws the complete game shutout at this price point, is he even the best?
I know. Right. Complete game shutout with like 4 Ks.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. He's a good pitcher.
Yeah, he's very good.
He's not a huge strikeout pitcher. You would basically need probably a top 3 game of Mike Soroka's entire career from this point forward for him to be like the best pitcher on this slate.
Right. Exactly. I just want to check this out real quick. So I have Soroka projected for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th most strikeouts on the slate, and he's the second highest priced.
Yeah.
So you do the math.
Soroka's 100% one of those guys where if there's anyone in the industry that's actually recommending him, which I have no idea if there is, he'll score 20 points and they'll say, oh, he was a great play. I can't believe he was 2% owned, when really 20 points is useless.
25 points could very easily be useless at that price.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the point here. Like, he's not the kind of guy that gives you a somewhat legitimate chance at 40 or 50 points like Cole and DeGrom do.
It's baseball, so we always try and preface it with that, but like you said, he would need a top 3 career game, maybe top 2 career game, or Cole and DeGrom, and I'll even throw Kershaw into the mix, and I'll throw Heaney in. They would just need to be garbage.
And that's without even talking about the fact that there's like 20 pitchers, that are cheap.
Right.
Not that we're saying we want to roster most of them, but you have Woodruff and Molly and Bailey, but all the other guys too, they're capable of having good games. It's for him to beat the entire slate at that price point is just such a low probability.
Dude, Woodruff is $4,000 cheaper. So
right.
It's crazy. And you've heard me recommend guys that don't have high K upside against Miami because I think they can go 8 innings. But that's when they're priced reasonably. That's when 8K would be more than enough with 7 innings, 1 run, and 5 strikeouts. But not here. So what are you doing with this game?
If Soroka were 11-6 on last night's slate, I probably would roster him. But it's just a totally different set of pitching.
Yep.
So I'm not really doing much of anything with this game because Jose Urena is pretty expensive as well. I don't see the need to be targeting him against Atlanta here. But it's also a really good park for pitchers. pricing on Atlanta's not that great. Acuna's price is fair. Donaldson's is fair, but for the most part, they're pretty expensive. Miami is really, really cheap. So again, if you wanted to get there with DeGrom Cole, you easily can, but there are enough other teams on the slate that would take priority over Miami for me, especially against a pitcher that I do think is good in Soroka. So I have basically nothing here.
Neither do I. That's why we're going to move on to Colorado and New York Mets. Dude, DeGrom's 9,400. It's crazy. I mean, he's hit some speed bumps this year, but he's still a near 30% pitcher. He still has a swinging strike rate of 14.3%. His fastball's still getting 15% whiffs. He still has 30% whiffs per swing or more on his slider and on his change. Like, I could go down a laundry list of reasons that Jacob deGrom should never be 9,400, especially against the Rockies, especially at Citi Field.
Yeah, agreed. You know, he's been good in some of the other stuff that we look at too. In called strike plus swinging strike percentage, he hasn't been great, but he has the second highest two strike percentage out of any starter that's thrown 750 pitches this year. He has the 14th best PCRA, just behind, or no, sorry, I don't even have that sorted right, but he has a 3.11 PCRA, which is about 0.4 runs better than his ERA. It's, you know, really good. He's struck out 28.9% of hitters. He's only walking 6.5%. He's not giving up a high percentage of barrels on balls in play. He's still been really good. And any concern that you possibly have with DeGrom, even if I don't think that it would be a well-founded concern anyway, should be alleviated by the fact that he's $46 on Yahoo and $9,400 on DraftKings.
Right. It's getting away from that is it's not happening. So Jacob deGrom to me is on DraftKings the top pitching option, and it's an easy call, but he's also, and this is no surprise, his ownership projection, you know what it's up to? Take a guess. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. I know it was 58 this morning.
Take a guess.
I'll guess it's jumped to like 68.
71.
Yeah.
On a 14-game slate.
Right. I mean, that's starting to finally push the envelope as far as, I'm not saying I'm not going to have DeGrom.
No, but it makes you think about some alternatives for sure.
Yeah. When he was 58, it was like, oh, you know, okay, like I'll come in over that. 71, I think it starts to become more likely that I'm around it. Like I wouldn't be upset if I have 100% DeGrom, but I don't know that I will. 71% on a 14-game slate. Like there are other pitching options here. Garrett Cole now is 2.5 times less owned. I think the math's right on that.
Yeah, 31%, so a little less than half owned.
Yeah.
But Heaney's down to 20%.
Right. But again, so this goes back to why I am approaching this slate in a kind of unusual way. And it's, I don't want exposure to a bunch of like not very good pitchers hoping to catch lightning there. I want as much DeGrom and Cole and Heaney and Woodruff and, you know, those guys as I can get, and then just be spreading out across offenses just because of, the price tags on those guys. There's not as much volatility in pitching, and they're clearly underpriced.
Right. Are you not setting any pitching caps?
I mean, I am, but it'll be close to 100%.
On DeGrom, you mean, especially?
Yeah, on DeGrom, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Right. So, like right now, if I include, and I'm looking at my DraftKings spreadsheet, if I include every single pitcher. Okay. If I include every single pitcher, which I'm not going to.
It's nice having a new computer that you can actually do stuff while you're on the show, isn't it?
Yeah. If I included every single pitcher, my ownership cap on DeGrom on DraftKings would be at 50%. But that's if I included every single pitcher, and that's intentionally set to be kind of low because I create so many extra lineups. So I mean, it's once I cut some pitchers out and everything, it's going to be close to 100% on DeGrom.
Right. Okay. And I mean, another thing too is the Rockies outside of Coors have really been a well below average team too. It's not like he's 9,400 because of the matchup or the park.
Right. Yeah, I thought this game was in Coors when I saw his price.
Sure. Seriously, yeah, you're right. Any other interest in hitters here? Senzatella on the mound for Colorado?
Not a ton. The Mets are pretty expensive. Alonso would be the guy that I like, him and Ramos, but They're both, I think, pretty comfortably priced or pretty reasonably priced, but not underpriced. Same goes for Conforto. On the other side, you're not even getting a discount on the Rockies, so I can't even advocate for like loading up or taking bats against DeGrom, because why am I paying $5,500 for Nolan Arenado or $5,700 for Trevor Story here?
Right. I'm with you, man. There's not really any reason to get away from it. Now, if you told me he's going to be, if you told me that 3/4 of the field is going to have him, so you were a little bit different today, I'm not going to fault you for it. I don't think you would either, but he is just so good and so inexpensive that what you've been kind of stressing all show is there are a lot of ways to still be different and have DeGrom. Like having DeGrom, you're up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 10 roster spots. DeGrom only takes up one of them.
Exactly. And so like on DraftKings, my target score for DeGrom would be about 31 points. I have him with a 37% chance of getting there. Next highest percentage among all the pitchers is Cole at 26% of reaching his, like 36%, because, obviously it's a different price point. So it's just, he's in a tier entirely by himself in terms of probability of getting the score that I want him to get.
Yep. No question. Texas and Oakland. Lance Lynn. How about Lance Lynn, man? He's somehow figured out how to quiet left-handed hitters this season, which have been an issue over his entire career. And he's 9,700 on DraftKings. He's 9.6 on FanDuel. Now, you and I have been doing shows for a while. You and I have always had at least some level of respect for Lance Lynn. I think you would agree with me there. Even last season when he struggled, it was never like Lance Lynn is a, I don't even want to say homer, but he's an Ivan Nova-like pitcher. He's not. And he's showing it this year, but there's just no way you're paying this much for him at Globe Life.
No, and I mean, the A's don't have a ton of strikeouts in their lineup either. They're right-handed heavy, which is nice for Lynn. He struck out about 28% of righties, but I'm not paying more money for Lance Lynn than for Jacob deGrom. It's just not going to happen. I'm not paying more for Lynn than for Herman either.
I'm not paying more for Lynn than Heaney either.
Yeah, that too. That's not going to happen. I'm still going to Oakland bats too, even though I do have respect for Lynn. It's just a pricing and an upside thing with Oakland. They're getting a huge park upgrade going to Texas, and they're just still, for the most part, really cheap. I mean, Chris Davis is less than $4K on DraftKings. The entire team is $4,100 or less, except for Matt Chapman, who's $4,800. It's still a good park for hitting. These guys have tons of power. Lynn's not infallible as a pitcher, so I'm still going to get to Oakland.
I personally think his strikeout numbers are a bit inflated too. So, I don't expect those to continue. One good reason, he faced Seattle twice in a row. He had double-digit strikeouts in both games. And he faced them. He's faced Seattle 3 times. He has 30 strikeouts.
That'll do it. He ranks 77th out of starters with at least 750 pitches in called strike plus swinging strike percentage.
27%. Exactly. Yeah, that's not good.
49th in 2-strike percentage. So it's not even like he's working in a lot of 2-strike counts. He's pretty average there.
Exactly. And his swinging strike rate's like mid 10%, which is okay.
Right.
That's why I think he's pitched really well. I've always had respect against righties specifically, but I'm not afraid to pick on Lynn either. I don't know how much Oakland I'd have. I mean, obviously the price points make that easier, but that's really the only reason I would target them. What are your thoughts on Texas here against Brett Anderson?
It's so hard to get to Texas because you go through the lineup, and from a one-off standpoint, it's hard to get there because I like Delino DeShields. He's leading off. Brett Anderson's allowed 7 steals already this year. I like the stolen base upside for DeShields, but then you get past that. You have Forsythe, who, whatever, I don't really want him. Andrus is okay. He has stolen base upside too. Mazara in a lefty-lefty matchup. Hunter Pence, $1,100 more than Mookie Betts. Asdrubal Cabrera, no power from the right side. Danny Santana, more expensive than Mookie Betts. Brugnet Odor, lefty-lefty. Jeff Mathis, worst hitter in the history of baseball. So from, a standpoint of one-offs, it's not really that appealing. If you wanted to stack this team, then fine. You just hope that Anderson puts a lot of guys on base and they get into the bullpen early and get some weak arms or something. But from a one-off standpoint, I don't think I get too much.
Yeah, neither do I. They're really tough to get to. When I was doing the cheat sheets for the deep dive for hitters today, I was like, yeah, I'm sure I'll have some Texas here. But then every time I came across them, the prices just got higher and higher.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult. And like, okay, actually, Delino DeShields I think is perfectly fine. 4K.
Yeah. DeShields is my favorite hitter on Texas, followed by Hendricks.
Yeah. Andrews is fine, but like Santana being 4,800, batting seventh. Well, you know what? Forsythe batting second at 4,300, I'm okay with too. So I think the configuration of the lineup makes it a little bit easier to get to him than it would have if like Santana was second and Forsythe was sixth.
Yeah, but okay, so here's the thing with that. With the way it's set up, if you are trying to stack the top of this order, you're either rostering Logan Forsythe at first base, which does not seem like a great idea, given opportunity cost, or you can't get Forsythe plus Andrews.
Right. Yeah, it's true. That is true. All right. Well, we broke that one down. Let's talk about the Pirates and Brewers. We have Brandon Woodruff and Rookie Davis. The two DeGrom's price tag obviously is pretty egregious on DraftKings, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say so is Woodruff's. I know he's facing a good Pittsburgh team. He faced this Pittsburgh team last week. He was 10,100. I get it was a different slate, a smaller slate, but Adam, he's a 28% strikeout pitcher, I think. 28%.
Yeah, he has excluding Andrew Haney in his 2 starts, Woodruff has the 4th highest strikeout percentage on the slate.
Right, and by the way, I have been excluding Haney when I'm ranking them by slate, only because he's not even close to qualified. But
he's not going to strike out 44% of hitters going forward.
I know. 19.3% swinging strike rate. I think his called plus swinging is like 39%. So, yeah, it's crazy. But he's been good, and we'll get there. With Woodruff, though, 31% called plus swinging strikes. Really good numbers. And he's actually been a little bit unlucky. He's had a very high BABIP all season long. It's starting to normalize a bit, but he has good stuff. I get that it's a tough matchup. I do. I totally get it. But he's not walking a ton of batters. He's striking lefties and righties out at 26+%. There's a lot to like about this when you're talking about potential upside at a price point that is here. If you're wondering if he's underpriced, I'll give you one very easy way to figure it out. Zach Eflin, Merrill Kelly, Marcus Stroman, Yanni Chirinos, and Eric Fetty are all more expensive than Woodruff on DraftKings.
Yeah. And, you said it. It's not the best matchup against Pittsburgh. It's a tough park. Pittsburgh doesn't strike out a ton. But to me, I can't pass up the 4th highest strikeout percentage on the slate as, probably 10th, 11th most expensive pitcher, something like that. Especially when he has, other numbers backing it up. His PCRA this season is 15th.
14th most expensive.
Okay, yeah, so it's crazy.
Sorry, go ahead.
If you look at his PCRA, which again it's similar to XFIP, except it factors in actual quality of contact instead of a league average, home run per fly ball. He's just behind DeGrom, Castillo, and Paddock. He's just ahead of Gray, Giolito, and Price. I mean, that's Sonny Gray, the really good Gray. It's just he's been really good. Like his ERA is 3.8, which is good. His PCRA is 3.21, which is obviously even better. The strikeouts are there. The walks are low. He doesn't give up a lot of barrels, and he's clearly priced down for the strike. Like the price tag takes into account whatever strikeout issues the Pirates present.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And somebody might point to him struggling against the Pirates last time out. I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
It's not even a left-handed issue thing. Against lefties this year, he's allowed a 332 xWOBA with a 26.7% strikeout percentage.
Right.
He's been better against righties, but he hasn't been bad against lefties.
No, and he's allowed 1 or fewer runs in like 5 of his last 6 starts other than that. So I'll take the upside there. In tournaments, it's hard to turn your nose at that. Milwaukee with the highest total on the slate. It was 6 against Rookie Davis. What do you make of this spot for the Brewers at home?
They're my favorite stack. Rookie Davis, I don't think is good. Going back to his time with Cincinnati when he was up with them, he struck out about 16%. He struck out about 16% in 7 starts at AAA this year. He's made, I think, 4 relief appearances, 24% strikeout percentage. But again, pitching out of the bullpen is much different than starting. And now he has to go in the Miller Park and face this Milwaukee team that has tons of power, tons of left-handed power specifically. I love Milwaukee here.
So do I. Really like them. Now, just so we're clear, you have a couple of discounted bats. So a few of these guys are easy to get to, but some of them are also really expensive. Who are you prioritizing?
Yelich, I mean,
Shaw, obviously.
Yeah, all the lefties. Shaw gives you some salary relief. Like I don't even think it's gonna be that hard to get to them because you can just use Homer Bailey or
I
you
know.
can use Woodruff.
No, I know. You're right. It's not that hard. I've even made a couple with DeGrom and Heaney in it. You're probably not getting Moustakas and Yelich, but you can. It's just tough to do. Anything else in this game you're interested in?
Nope.
All right, Baltimore and Houston. Garrett Cole, Gabriel Ynoa. So, the Orioles have a 2.8 total, and Cole is a 326 favorite here. On DraftKings, it's a little bit different. I mean, I still think you can play this guy anywhere. When you just from a ceiling standpoint, he is the highest on the slate. But I want you to also talk about on FanDuel where Cole's only $400 more than Soroka, $500 more than Kershaw, and $900 more than DeGrom. They are very tightly grouped on FanDuel, where it's not the case on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the clear one on FanDuel. I think that he's right up there with DeGrom. He's the top projected pitcher. It's just a bigger difference in price tag on Yahoo and on DraftKings. But it's a really good spot here. I mean, he obviously he struck out 37.9% of hitters this season. He leads the league in PCRA. He's basically at the top of every single pitching leaderboard you're going to look at. The Orioles haven't struck out a ton against right-handed pitching this year, but this lineup's a bit different. You have Keon Broxton and Chris Davis in it for one of the first times recently. So that's two guys that approach 40% strikeout percentages. They have 5 lefties in here. He struck out over 40% of left-handed hitters this season. It's just such a good spot for Garrett Cole that regardless of site, I'm looking to get as much of him as I can.
Yep, I agree. I don't know how you couldn't like Garrett Cole here. Just all of the numbers are ridiculous.
They mentioned on the Orioles game last night that they were facing Cole tonight. And so before I looked, I was trying to think of like what salary I wouldn't want to roster Cole at. And I mean, I think he'd have to be pushing like $14K for me to not want him.
Yeah, I know. What about Houston?
They're okay. Ynoa is not great. He's not, he's not Dan Straley, but he's not great. The Orioles bullpen's still really bad. The thing with Houston, though, obviously, is just that they're missing 3 of their best hitters. But you still get some salary relief there. Bregman's really good and he's expensive. Brantley's good and he's expensive. But you get speed with Derek Fisher. You get some power at catcher with Chirinos. You get a really cheap power bat in Tyler White. You get some speed at the bottom of the order, too, with Miles Straw. I think that the Astros probably go a little bit overlooked just because I personally don't really want to click most of these guys into a lineup. But they do have a 5.3 implied run total. They are in a really high upside spot against a mediocre pitcher in Ynoa and a bad Baltimore bullpen. And they do still give you power and speed because their organization is so good that even when they replace their best hitters, it's with other guys that are useful.
Yeah, tell me about it. Anything else on this game?
Nope.
All right, we'll move on here. Hey, by the way, the U.S. Open's coming up, and Yahoo's got a couple really solid contests that if you haven't checked it out yet, we definitely urge you to do so. We'll drop the link in the YouTube chat as well. So when you sign up, you get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, which are the same as cash. Same as cash. You can use them however you want on the site. And, of course, you've still got your MLB contest tonight. $15K guaranteed, $2K to first, only a 12% management fee. And you don't have any 150 entries, 10 entry max over there on Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Use the code AWESOMO as well to get that bonus. But for the U.S. Open, we've got a $50K guaranteed, $10K to first, $25 to enter, only 10 entries max, and a 12% management fee. And for those of you looking to do a little bit lower stakes, the $6K guaranteed, $600 to first place, only $3 to enter, 10 entry max again, no management fee at all. So none whatsoever over there on Yahoo. Use the link. Use AWESEMO, AWESEMO when you sign up. Get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, and we hope to see you over there. All right, let's keep it going here. Kansas City and the White Sox. Homer Bailey's 4,500 on DraftKings, man.
Yeah, and that's the one site that I have interest in him. I don't really feel like I need to pay more for him than Pineda on Yahoo. I certainly don't feel like I need to roster him on FanDuel. But 4,500, I mean, the guy at least has some good qualities, and that's more than I can say about a lot of pitchers that I've rostered in the 5K range this year. He has struck out 24% of lefties. He does have a splitter that gets a lot of swings and misses and isn't hit hard. He is facing 4 lefties today, but it's a Chicago team that in general just has some strikeouts in their lineup. But again, at 4,500, I mean, if he gives you innings and a few runs, you're going to be fine. And he at least has the upside to get you like 20 points at that price. So he's easily my best or my favorite value pitcher on DraftKings.
Yeah, he has to be. I mean, he doesn't have to be. You can do whatever you want. But his K rate against righties isn't bad. He's got a 12% swinging strike rate against righties. Like, he can get them out. Now, against lefties. And I was hoping we'd see that 5th lefty in the lineup today. I was hoping we'd see like Tilson in there.
Yep.
But we aren't. But still, there's plenty of Ks. Could this matchup go terribly awry and Homer Bailey gets rocked? Sure. But I do find it interesting that he has 15 or more DraftKings points in 6 of 12 starts, so half of his starts. And he's basically minimum salary. So you don't need 30 fantasy points from him. If you got 16, 17 from Bailey at that price, you're probably in all right shape given that your stacks come through and you're going to be paying up for them.
Yep. On DraftKings, I have 5 pitchers with at least a 20% chance of reaching the target score I have for them in tournaments. And they're Cole, DeGrom, Haney, Woodruff, Bailey.
What's his target score?
21.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
I do think that Eloy Jimenez is a really good play against him. He has struggled a bit more with righties than lefties. Jimenez has power and is really, really cheap.
Yeah, really cheap. I added him to that cheat sheet as well today. It doesn't mean that bats against Bailey aren't in play. It just means he's cheap enough to consider.
Yeah, I mean, right now he's not projected for a lot of ownership either. If on our final ownership update, his ownership goes up like I expect it to, although maybe it won't just because there are so many underpriced guys today, then I would have more interest in the White Sox.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't, honestly. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, there are 28 pitchers.
What about the other side of this game, Nova and Kansas City?
Yeah, so Kansas City, it's interesting because the top of their order is really expensive. But Josh and I played around with it for a while on the show this morning. And because the bottom, like 5 through 9 of this Kansas City team is so cheap, you can get, like Cole plus DeGrom plus a stack of a team with a 5.2 implied run total and some decent one-offs around them. So they're a team that I think I probably get to a pretty decent amount in tournaments just because they are pretty easy to stack and you can do whatever you want with pitching and one-offs. And I think that they offer a nice combination of power and speed. So they're a team that I tend to get to a lot.
All right. I think so too. Plus, Nova is just one of these guys that is. I mean, he's clearly one of the worst pitchers in baseball right now. So
yeah, you're not going to go on a Ryan O'Hearn tangent.
Should I?
I mean,
apparently Jake's a big O'Hearn guy as well. It was funny. We shared a moment on the strategy show the other day. But honestly, Ryan O'Hearn batting 5th at 3,300 all day, man.
Yeah, cool. And facing a pitcher that gets no swings and misses.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with Ryan O'Hearn here.
So he'll probably only strike out twice.
3 times. But yeah, you're right. I mean, honestly, he's a good play. I wish he had like first and second eligibility so I didn't have to play him at first base, but you could do a lot worse. All right, a few games to go here. We finally get to the Angels in Seattle. Andrew Heaney this season, we've already pretty much pointed it out. In 2 starts, he's striking out 43% of batters, has a 20% swinging strike rate, 39% called plus swinging strike rate. The numbers are ridiculous. And I don't think either of us expect him to continue pitching at such a ridiculous clip, but he has 17 whiffs on 53 curveballs. 18 whiffs on 53 curveballs and 17% whiffs on his 2-seamer. So the 2 pitches that he throws the most, he's getting a ton of missed bats. Mariners had the second highest strikeout rate against lefties on their active roster. They do have some power, but there's just a lot of upside for a guy like Heaney today.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing that I really like here is, even if you don't buy into what he's doing this year. Like even if you want to just assume that he hasn't improved at all and he's the same exact pitcher as last year, he was a good pitcher last year too, and he'd be
sure. He's just always hurt.
Right, yeah, he'd be a very reasonable play here. Last year he struck out 24% of hitters, 6% walk percentage. He was a pretty good pitcher. Maybe he's made some improvements, maybe he hasn't, but either way, I think he's a viable option here. I'd obviously like him more if he wasn't in the same price tag as DeGrom and if he wasn't more expensive than Woodruff, but I expect that I'll get to him more than most pitchers on this slate.
So do I. And it's not really hard to pair him with a DeGrom here either. It's not.
No, the only thing that makes it hard, like you're going to like the bats you get, but you can either go from Haney up to Cole and you're really only sacrificing like a hitter or two, or you can drop to Woodruff and get a hitter or two. So that's why I think, like, I'm not sure how much I'll get because I expect that I'll get more Woodruff plus DeGrom and DeGrom plus Cole pairings.
Right. So one of the things I found, though, is like with a 5-person Brewers stack with Yelich, with Moustakas, with Thames, with Kane, and obviously Shaw, DeGrom and Heaney in there, it's not tough. Like Danny Jansen's minimum salary. So there's one. And then like you talked about Eloy Jimenez, he's $3,300. If there ever was a day where like you definitely 100% do not have to pay for pitching or both pitchers. You don't.
Right.
You have Bailey, you have Woodruff. I'll even throw Pineda in there, but you can. That's like it's doable. And making decent lineups is not crazy either. But I definitely hear what you're saying. What about hitters here against Marco Gonzalez? I mean, you want to talk about a guy that's just not missing and doesn't miss any bats. Gonzalez is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying Mike Trout. Ohtani's price tag's coming up a little bit. He hasn't been good in lefty-lefty matchups since coming over. So that's, not a perfect spot here with so many outfield bats. I think it's an okay spot for Pujols. I prefer him against low-velocity guys like Gonzalez. But overall, I don't really see myself getting to a whole lot of the Angels outside of probably Trout, just because there are stacks that I think are cheaper with just as much upside.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Yep. So if you wanted to leverage against Haney, you do it with Encarnacion and Santana.
Right. I agree. Okay, so Washington and San Diego, Eric Fedde, Nick Margevicius. What are your thoughts on these Washington hitters?
They're really expensive, and I expect that to keep their ownership down, but you can still get them. Like, you can go DeGrom plus a Washington stack as long as you're willing to use Homer Bailey and still get pretty decent one-offs in there.
Howie Kendrick is a fortune.
Yeah, I know. They're super expensive, and I honestly don't know how much I will get, but they're the one team on the slate where I look at them, and I'm just like, I could easily see how I don't really get to them, and it's going to piss me off so much
I
when
agree.
they go nuts.
But they're so expensive.
Right. They're totally a luxury. And in all honesty, if you go to the Nats, you need a lot to break your way because there are so many really cheap stacks. You need none of them to go off. Because if they do, you're just talking about raw points at pitcher, and these cheap stacks that are with DeGrom plus Cole, they could easily have 80 points at pitcher to start out.
Oh, no question.
And so you need the cheap stacks not to do well. You need, Cole to not be great. You need Bailey to be good. Like, you need a lot, and then you need the Nats to score the most runs on the slate. So you need a lot to go in your favor.
Yeah, you really
I probably would prefer them as one-offs. Having said all that, like Rendon is a spot you can pay up to be contrarian, and you get a really, really good hitter. Turner, kind of the same thing, not a really, really good hitter, but it's shortstop. So I think maybe that's how I end up approaching it, just because you do need so much to go right if you stack them all the way through.
I never thought I'd see the day where Howie Kendrick was $5,400.
I never thought I'd see the day that I wasn't just openly laughing at it.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's overpriced, but I don't think it's insane.
It's not insane. Meanwhile, Jay Bruce is above $5K as well.
And Mookie Betts is $4,400.
Yep, exactly. Nelson Cruz, $3,700.
Chris Davis, $39. But that goes back to the point of how much you need to go right, because it's not like this is a slate where there's a ton of really tight pricing. It's a slate where there are a ton of underpriced hitters, and if you stack the Nats, you're just willingly saying, screw all of the good, value plays on this slate. I'm just going to this team, and so you really need a lot to go your way.
Exactly. All right. Do you want to talk about guys like Machado, who's also underpriced? Any bats for San Diego?
Yeah, I'm actually interested in San Diego, specifically as mini stacks. and specifically Machado and Reyes. Reyes has big time power and he's affordable. Machado hasn't been great, but he's, the shortstop and he's cheap. So I like him. Eric Fetty is not great either. The Nats bullpen's atrocious. So I think that those two guys really stand out. And then if you wanted to grab a third guy like a Hunter Renfroe or something, it gives you a, low owned mini stack that has a lot of power.
Okay. Want to hit our last game here?
Yep.
All right. Dodgers, San Francisco Giants. Before we do, use the promo code Deeper Dive. One word, Deeper Dive, to get 50% off your first month at Awesemo.com. Awesemo Plus membership here. Ownership projections, player projections, the top stack tool that we reference every day. The lineup builder for those of you that still that are making lineups by hand. Fantasy Cruncher add-on, Fantasy Cruncher Pro, lineup study. There's so much to offer over here at Awesemo.com. Articles from Adam, myself, Josh Engelman, your old pal E-Mac, and a lot. WNBA content, you name it, NASCAR, MMA, NHL, NBA, MLB, and everything. And we got the best PGA guys in the world. Ben Rasa. You don't get any better than Ben. So use the promo code Deeper Dive, all one word, to get 50% off your first month. And we'll see you over there. Say what's up in the premium Slack chat. When you do, you'll see us in there each and every day. Okay. Adam, last one, San Francisco and the Dodgers. I think on many, many slates, Clayton Kershaw would be the top pitching option on the slate. Today, I don't have him in the top. Now, I'm not talking raw points, but value-wise, I don't have him in the top 5.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that I'm going to go ahead and leave, in my player pool because it is a really good
You're
spot.
not going to exclude the guy against the Giants at Oracle, right?
Yeah, I prefer him to Matthew Boyd, even though he's a little more expensive. The strikeout numbers are down, but the walk rate is basically through the floor. He's still been a really, really good pitcher. So I'm fine with whatever Kershaw I get to. It's just for me to get to him, it means that it's basically a lineup where I have all the hitters, I have the stack and all the one-offs that I want. I have, like a DeGrom or Woodruff or whatever, and I just don't have $1,000 for Cole, but I have 11-2 for Kershaw. That's how Kershaw gets in the lineups, because I obviously prefer Cole over him. I obviously prefer DeGrom over him.
All right. And so do I. The thing with Kershaw is, so actually, you talk about target scores. What's the probability that he hits his for you?
So I have his target score on DraftKings at 11-2 at 34.4 DraftKings points with a 14% chance of getting there.
And you said you had 4 guys above 15?
I have 5 at 20 or higher.
20 or higher. Okay. Yeah. Right. And that's why I'm saying he's outside of the top 5 for me. It doesn't mean he's not in play, but he is pretty pricey, especially given that I won't say his ceiling is lower than it used to be, but I think it is. It is.
Yeah, he used to be basically just as efficient a pitcher, just with a lot more strikeouts.
Right.
So
exactly.
His ceiling is lower.
But he's very good, so he's figured a way out to, work with lower velocity. Drew Pomeranz has been flat garbage, man. He's been so bad. Goes up against Baltimore, doesn't get out of the second, 8 runs, 2 home runs. Credit the Orioles. They're hitting lefties well. But, he's just not good. I get it. It's Oracle part, but I don't know. You need to be a real masochist to want to play him over so many of the cheap options on this slate.
Yeah, he has a top 10 2-strike percentage among all starters with 750 pitches. There's no other stat. Yeah, there's no other stat that makes me interested.
Right, exactly. That's right.
It's definitely not a slate or a matchup that I want to get to. More interested again in, just getting to the Dodgers because of how good they are. They should probably have a lot of righties at the top of this order, and Oracle doesn't play down right-handed power as much as it does lefties. The issue is that depending on the lineup, those guys do come with some pinch hit risk, particularly, David Freese. But yeah, I think the Dodgers are kind of interesting. They're not a huge priority for me, but I do think that it's a really high upside spot because Pomeranz just gives up so much power.
Right. Yeah. The Dodgers, if the Dodgers went off and ended up scoring 10 runs, I wouldn't be shocked. I think you could put it that way, but you're not getting a park discount either.
Yeah.
Hernandez is not cheap to where he has been, at least. Bellinger's still super pricey. Jock's still super pricey. It's hard to get there. All right. Anything else for this one?
Nope.
All right. No Donovan Solano.
Josh kept throwing him into lineups this morning as a one-off.
He's not even in the lineup, but I just
No,
think
he's
it's funny because he was projected to get ownership.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hit our top stacks. Man, we are an efficient team here, man. It's 559.
Yeah, this slate was weird just because like there was so much pitching where all you had to say was it's not Jacob deGrom and it's not Garrett Cole.
Right, exactly. Top stacks?
Not a ton that stand out to me. Milwaukee and Oakland. Milwaukee because I think they have a really high probability of scoring a lot of runs. Oakland because they're really cheap and have a lot of power. I'll throw Toronto into the cheap with a lot of power category.
Okay. Milwaukee obviously at the top. I do like the Royals though. And I think, you were talking about teams like Washington being really expensive, and I mentioned the Dodgers being expensive. The Royals are kind of expensive in a couple spots, like Mondesi is expensive, but they're not that hard to get to. And Gordon's expensive, Whit Merrifield's at a decent price, but O'Hearn is cheap, and Cuthbert's cheap. There are ways to get there are ways to get the Royal stacks into your lineup with relative ease. So.
Yep, agreed.
All right. Anything else before we head out?
Nope.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us. Hey, remember, check out all of Yahoo Sports, Daily Fantasy Sports U.S. Open contests. They got the 50K and then the 6K with no management fee. Pretty gnarly. Also, the 15K MLB guaranteed today. And before you head out, if you enjoy the content, you want to see more of it, hit us with a thumbs up, like the video. It helps us out greatly, and we really appreciate it. Subscribe and hit the notification bell as well. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Good luck tonight. We'll catch you back here on Monday. Stick around. Jake and Josh got you on Live Before Lock going up till 7:05 Eastern Time, starting at 6. Peace.